And want to get you into this. Homeland Security Investigations in Atlanta currently having a media briefing at this point to talk about Operation Red Carpet. So let's listen together.
Some of the most egregious cases that we encountered included a 30-year-old convicted felon who was arrested for child exploitation offenses after engaging in explicit online conversations and traveling to meet with what he believed was a 14-year-old child for sexual encounters. He arrived at this meetup location with a shotgun and body armor in his vehicle. In another case, a 25-year-old male was arrested on human trafficking charges after transporting a female victim to multiple locations for commercial sexual acts. He controlled her advertisements. He controlled arrangements with clients. He collected all proceeds and kept her under his direct control at hotels. In his vehicle, we also recovered a firearm. A 28-year-old male was arrested for human trafficking after forcing a female victim into commercial sex acts and transporting her against her will. He was also found with a loaded firearm. On July 1st, Georgia enacted significant changes to its sex and human trafficking laws, elevating offenses such as pimping and pandering to felonies. These tougher laws took effect midway throughout our operations, resulting in even stronger enforcement and greater accountability for offenders. These arrests and rescues are more than numbers. They represent lives changed, exploitation stopped, and our community made safer. Our message is clear. Atlanta is not a safe place for traffickers and predators. We will find them. We will bring these heinous predators to justice. At this time, I'd like to introduce Chris Hosey, the director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations.
Good morning. First off, I'd like to congratulate the state of Georgia on what I believe was a very successful FIFA Games, not just from a public safety perspective, but for the fan experience as well. I believe it was well received, and I believe as a whole, the state of Georgia did an outstanding job in hosting these games. As mentioned, the agents in law enforcement that are represented here today and participated in this operation are deeply committed to one of the most important missions in law enforcement. For them, this became more than a job. It became a moral responsibility, and as some people will call it, a calling. Operation Red Card is attributed to the continuing mission in combating child exploitation, child sex trafficking, and adult human trafficking in this state. This operation was a proactive undercover investigation and intel gathering mission that was coordinated by HIS, GBI, the Georgia ICAC Task Force, U.S. Secret Service, Customs, CJCC, and many, many local law enforcement agencies, some that are represented here today, and we appreciate your assistance with this. These crimes target some of the most innocent and vulnerable members of our society and our citizens here in Georgia. They are hidden, they are silent, and often not detected until it's too late or the innocence has been taken away from that victim. That's why this mission must continue. That's why this mission was conducted. Today's criminal networks are complex, organized, requiring coordinated enforcement at every level. That is why partnerships between local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies allow us to see the full picture of these organized criminal networks, not just pieces of it. Law enforcement partnerships make Georgia one of the great states in our nation and leaders for response and action to these type of criminal activities. Each case resolved can prevent years of abuse and trauma for these victims. Every image taken offline, every offender brought to justice can spare a victim from pain and help that healing process begin. The commitment of the GBI and every agency represented here today is simple. It will be to work together across all levels of law enforcement to protect this state, our community, and its citizens. While doing so, upholding that rule of law while we ensure public safety remains one of our top priorities. I will now introduce CJCC Director Jay Neal.
Thank you, Director Halsey. Good morning. It is an honor to be with you all this morning. We've all heard Governor Kemp say many, many times that Georgia is the #1 state in the nation to work and live and raise a family, and there are a lot of reasons for that. Georgia has a lot of incredible resources and assets, from the coastline to the mountains, from the ports to the airport, a lot of really good assets in the state of Georgia. And over the last few months, we've had an opportunity to really showcase Atlanta and the state of Georgia, not just to people around this country, but people around the world. And I can't say enough about the work that everybody has done leading into the FIFA events. And I was not directly involved in any of the operations, but I did come and walk around a little bit. And I can say that I am proud to be a Georgian and proud of what we were able to see over these last couple of months. One of the things that was talked about a lot leading into the World Cup was the possibility of human trafficking. Obviously, when you have an event like this, people from all over the world coming together, so many people being here, there is that risk. And I would say that the individuals that were involved in this operation, whether it's the federal partners or the state partners or the local community, showcased what I believe really makes Georgia the best place to live and work and raise a family, and that is the people. Our greatest asset, our greatest resource in Georgia is our people, and people came together to address this issue over the last couple of months and had just incredible success, incredible response. We're grateful to have been able to be a part of that. Our human trafficking unit plays an important part in these operations. We come alongside the law enforcement partners, community partners, and we provide advocacy for those individuals that are involved in human trafficking. We provide victim-centered, trauma-informed victim advocacy for them. We coordinate with health partners, including Bethesda Community Clinic and the Kennesaw State University School of Medicine, to provide critical medical support as part of that immediate response. And as the special agent announced, we saw 54 victims that were rescued during this operation. 27 of those, all 54 were offered victim services. 27 of those accepted those victim services, such as crisis intervention, medical care, safety planning, emergency shelter if needed, transportation, food, clothing, and connections to long-term services. Those 27 individuals are now on a pathway toward a new life. For some of these individuals, it may be the first time in months, maybe years, that somebody asked them, "How can I help you?" Now, I think that's important. Those individuals that thought that they were trapped with no way out and no hope finally had somebody come along beside them and not tell them how bad they were or tell them what kind of lifestyle they're involved in, but instead came along beside them and said, "How can I help you?" 27 of those are now on the way to a better life. And I am certainly proud to be able to say that not only do we hold people accountable, not only have we gotten people off the streets, but we also gave new opportunities and hope to victims who otherwise felt like that they had very little hope. The success of Operation Red Card demonstrates what's possible when law enforcement officers, victim service providers, healthcare partners, and community organizations work together. This operation focused on the World Cup period, but the commitment continues as we continue working together with our federal partners and with our state partners as well to do everything that we can to find those victims and to offer them the hope that they thought was gone. Thank you all.
Thank you, Director Neal. Now we will take a few questions if there are any.
Special Agent Schrank, where were the majority of these arrests concentrated? Like in what parts of Metro Atlanta did the majority of these arrests happen?
We conducted this operation throughout the Atlanta metro area. There was no one specific area where we operated. So it was in outlying counties. It was right in the heart of Atlanta as well. We wanted to make sure that we diversified the areas that we worked in order to go after perpetrators no matter where they were. Sir?
Can you talk about, were these local alleged sex traffickers who were already here? Were there some who had come here hoping to somehow take advantage of crowds here? And also reverse, the ones who were arrested for pandering, were they local residents or were they people in town for the event?
It was, so the question was, did we have traffickers from the area that were involved in this operation or those that traveled in, as well as individuals for pandering? The answer is all of the above. We had traffickers that specifically sought to take advantage of the crowds and visitors that were coming in to enjoy all of the events going on throughout the World Cup. And we had individuals that were localized who were arrested and individuals from out of our greater area as well.
The 14 people who were unlawfully present in the U.S., were they here for a long time already, or did they just come over to the U.S. solely for the World Cup?
No, these were not individuals that came solely for the World Cup. There were no outside international visitors that were arrested through this operation.
Did any of these arrests go down or near FanFest or stadium during any of the World Cup games or any of the operations?
No, for safety and security purposes, we specifically moved our undercover operations outside of the areas of the greatest concentration of public enjoying the events. So we separated them.
What would you like to say to people who may have been concerned with this undercover operation just happening in their backyards?
Right, so we've been listening there to Homeland Security Atlanta, giving that operation on update, that is, on Operation Red Card. So heard some interesting things on that, talked about the collaborative effort there, trying to, break down human trafficking, child exploitation, and related offenses. Said 54 people that were rescued through Operation Red Card. So certainly job well done to those investigators.